Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mike Rosehart Show live today, this Wednesday on Canada Day. This July 1st, it is Canada Day. Happy, I want to say 152nd year, 151st year since Canada became a country. But today I want to talk about how great Canada is. I'm very blessed to live in Canada. And for those of us who do live in Canada and follow on the YouTube channel, give it a like today. Let's smash that like button. I don't know how many people are going to tune in because I'm sure you're out there enjoying the festivities, having fireworks, time with family. It's a national holiday. So many people in Canada today not working. And for those people in the US who are jealous that they don't live in Canada, just listen into this live stream and hear me out about why I think Canada is the best place to fire. So financial independence or retire early. There's a number of reasons why I like Canada, and there's some specific benefits about Canada, but one of them I want to start with at the very outset is that Canada is known throughout the world as a very friendly place, a very environmentally conscious place with a lot of green space, a lot of positive things, like we have low crime rate, and we've got some great social programs that exist, like free healthcare, which I'm going to get to in a second. But we also have some of the higher tax rates in the world, but that's a myth. For those people who actually understand the tax code and understand how it actually works for early retirees looking to be financially independent and retire early, they know I've done a video previously about a year ago or so where I broke down how you can invest in companies and collect eligible Canadian dividends. So you're investing in Canadian blue chip companies like our big bank stocks, anything on the TSX, Toronto Stock Exchange, basically. And they'd be eligible dividends you could collect, and you can collect $50,000 per person in a couple relationship, completely tax-free. So you can set up your early retirement with, say, $1 million, and you put 500, you could $2 million, let's say. $1 million in one spouse's name, $1 million in the other spouse's name, invest in dividends, collect 5% return from dividends, and the rest in capital appreciation, and boom, you'd have $50,000 completely tax-free for the one spouse, $50,000 a year tax-free from the other spouse. So $100,000 a year, you're paying no tax, free healthcare, great social programs. By the way, the CERB program that exists during COVID is like over $2,000 a month. Businesses are getting $40,000 interest-free with a $10,000 being completely forgiven. Like, the government just hands out money here. And yes, they tax the middle class here in Canada. And yes, they tax the ultra wealthy class here in Canada. But if you're smart about how you take care of things, and you fit into this sort of niche FIRE movement in that you want to retire early and you're okay living on less than, say, $100,000 a year, Canada's a great place to retire. We have a great, the air quality here in Canada is some of the best that I've seen. We have tons of natural trails. We have some of the most fresh water available of any country. There are a lot of great things about Canada. And in fact, we're very multicultural. We're very diverse. I'm thankful that in my daily life, pretty much all the people I surround myself with, none of them are, an English or British descent, Indian, Chinese, or Asian descent of some sort, Spanish descent, from South America, or from Africa even. There's tons of different diversities here in Canada. So I just want to take a minute before I get into any Q&A today. And I'm hoping, by the way, that we don't have very many questions, because I'm about to go over to the neighbors. We're going to do a big projector movie night thing and do some fireworks, and the neighbors have gotten together and we're pitching in to have a Canada Day celebration on the Frugal. So anyway, I'm always here no matter what. And I promise that regardless of what the holiday is or where I am, I go live every Wednesday. I've been on vacation and my wife's like, "You're going live tonight?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's get in the hotel room, let's get the Wi-Fi, I'm going live." Is consistency. And everything that I do, I try to be consistent to my word. And that's a big thing, I think, in general. It's a message I want to share. I think that Canadians do a better job of this than most other nations, but just it comes down to a personal level, taking accountability. Almost everything is our own fault. And that's how I start. Whenever there's a problem, I'm like, what could I have done better? Where did, COVID happen, whatever, and how did we react? But how could I have done better? How can I have been better through the situation? Airbnb is dead, but how could I react better? What can I do that I can control, and how can I be better? So accountability is a big piece. And I think that, Canadians do a great job of, feeling socially responsible, I think, for, individual citizens. And I just like that about our culture here, about how Canadians are great people. And so if you're looking to move to Canada, cost of living can be very affordable in some places. And maybe not in Toronto or Vancouver, but on the outliers surrounding Toronto or in places like London or some smaller cities, there's some really affordable cost of living for the quality of the life that you have. Let's not forget that Canada has like I think top 10 for education. So like our public schools and our publicly funded Catholic schools are some of the best. They rival the private schools in many cases, right? So there's some great things about Canada that I think that a lot of other countries don't have. And today I'm thankful to be Canadian, and I'm thankful that I'm in a place where I can be free and I can really be like, we're so blessed to live here and to have this opportunity, to be together. And despite we might have our hardships here in Canada, just like any other place, I think the pros outweigh the cons. And I think of any other place that I want to live, cost wise, your dollar goes really far here. We have a really good tax system set up for early retirees. So it's interesting that they don't have these kinds of things in the United States. And so I'm thankful a lot of days for Canada. Yeah, so that is what I had to say on Canada today. And that's my like 6-minute rant on Canada and how great it is. So now we can go into, what I've been up to. I'll give you guys a status update and then just kind of share, I use this as a journaling tool too. So just share what's been up in my life. So I can look back, a year from now and watch. I probably won't watch them, but if I ever wanted to, I could look back, or my kids could look back and say, this is what Dad was up to, 2 years ago on 2018 or 2019 or whatever. So anyway, if there's any questions, I will jump in and answer them. Shaylin, how you doing? Happy Canada Day to you as well. How to Save says, let's go, let's get it. South London Reseller says, hey Mike, happy celebrations. Thank you. William says, happy Canada Day. Joe, so Jimmy, how you doing? Trevor says, thanks for being here tonight, Mike. Hey, happy to be here. Happy Canada Day, no problem. Thank you for the message. Australia says, mate, our minimum wage is going up to $19.84 an hour. Geez, that seems high. But I guess when you put it in perspective, maybe cost of living is higher in Australia, and they need that to sort of offset. Here in Canada, it's $14 an hour, I believe, is our minimum wage. Now that seems like it might be high compared to some US states where it's $7 or $8. But you have to remember that, one, we have a really good Canada pension plan and unemployment insurance. If you get laid off in Canada, you get like 55% of your income for almost like a year. It's like 9 months or something. And there's just tons of great social programs that they deduct off of our pay. So on a $14 minimum wage, you're really making a lot less than that because there are some deductions. For those that are working in Canada, there's quite a bit of deductions. If you're financially independent and you're enjoying a dividend-funded lifestyle, there's pretty much no tax. So that's kind of cool. There's some really great loopholes here in Canada, better than the US actually, for FIRE. So if you're looking to be financially independent, retiring early, Canada actually has one of the best tax systems in the world for that system. Now, if you're really rich, it's not good. You're gonna pay a lot of tax. But if you're like upper middle class, top 5%, and like financially independent, I guess, so you saved up like $1 million to retire early, which is actually a lot more people than you might think. A lot of the baby boomers are in that sort of niche. Then Canada's a great place to be because, again, no health insurance at all. If you want to pay for like an elective surgery, you can go to private clinics and stuff like that and get treated quicker because the lines are long. You do go on a long wait list because it's equal. Anyone has a chance at the same medical treatment here, right? But yeah, it's some great things about Canada. So can't stop talking about how much I love Canada. I think it's a great country. I'm blessed to live here. I've had the choice to move to other countries where cost of living might be lower. But if you factor in the total cost of living, as in the tax implications and some of like the healthcare pieces, I think it actually ends up being cheaper to live in Canada, especially in a smaller, city where, like here in London, you could pick up, right now, I know of a 5-bedroom, 3-bath, massive house that's for rent for like $1,900 plus utilities. So that's out there right now. By the way, it's tenants market for finding good places to live. Now you probably have to have a good income to qualify. The reason the price is so low on the rent is this is a big house and they want someone to take care of it. They want someone who's going to be really well qualified. So you'd have to be a super well qualified tenant to probably get that unit, but you could get that whole house, and that's a relatively low cost of living. In the GTA, people pick up, big houses in the suburbs just outside of Toronto, but still within commuting distance. Like I see 5-6 bedroom houses, people pick them up for like $3,000 a month. And they get great, that's like a massive 3,000, 4,000 square foot house in some cases. So you can rent really cheaply, even in some of the better areas to live in Canada. So hashtag blessed, maybe not to own a home in Vancouver or Toronto, that would be a mistake. But I think for those who know how to move through the system, Canada has a lot of really great things going for it for raising a family And just for FIRE, for financial independence, retire early lifestyle, it's great. Now, getting to FIRE, working and building up wealth here in Canada, there's a lot of taxes and there's a lot associated with that. But yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful country. And I think I will always call Canada home. That doesn't mean I won't travel 5.5 months a year outside of Canada and be here 6.5 months to stay, a Canadian citizen. Because I may travel when COVID restrictions end. I plan to spend a lot of my winter time in a warm place. And so I love Canada in the summer, and in the winter it's great for like a month. Like it's great to go like snowboarding and skiing and enjoy all the winter festivities, and then like January hits and you're like, eek, it's cold and I'm done. Time to go somewhere warm. So you can mitigate some of the negatives, I think, of the cold in Canada. Let's be honest, like right now it's like 100 degrees Fahrenheit outside here in London, Ontario, and I was swimming in a pool just the side here, so like for the whole afternoon, and it's beautiful. Like that's 30 degrees Celsius pretty much. It's a beautiful day. It's as warm here as anywhere else. And so for 4 to 5 months a year, it's fantastic weather. And then the spring and fall I love too. So Canada's a great place. For those naysayers who hate Canada, Canada's a great place. And I'm lucky to be a citizen of it. And I'm thankful every day for the opportunity to support the system too. I pay a lot of tax, especially in my years of building to financial independence. I had to pay a lot of tax. And I'm happy to contribute to the social system that exists, and some of the social programs that exist. Not all of them are good. There's a lot of problems, along the way. There's a lot of things I think that Canada could do better. I don't want to get into a political debate right now on live stream, but I will say that Canada has a lot of great things going for it, and the social security net that exists keeps people from, basically there's sort of what do you call? It's not called welfare anymore. It's called like there's another name for it. I think it's called Ontario Works here in Ontario. But you get free money from government if you have not any assets and no job. Like you literally get free money no matter what from government. I don't know if it's like something under $1,000 a month. But again, these programs exist, and I'm happy to fund them so that someone actually has a place to live. Now, what happens is people have mental illness, they end up on the streets because they just can't even function in society. That's a real sad situation. We need to develop programs for that. But again, all of us Canadians should be happy to pay some tax to ensure that at the end of the day, these programs exist for the people who are really struggling. I grew up with not a lot, and I relied on some of these programs. My family relied on some of these programs just to put food on the table, right? And so at the end of the day, I think Canada's a great place where anyone can really rise up. Our education system is top notch. Honestly, if I didn't go to some of the best publicly funded elementary and high schools, I wouldn't be where I am today. It's because I had such great people in my life. Anyway, so Canada's just a beautiful country, and those people who are critics of Canada, I would say come do a little bit of research and don't listen to some of the stereotypes, because Canada actually does have a great tax system. Watch the replay, you'll see that I talked about you can bring in $100,000 a year in dividend income as a couple, completely tax-free, zero tax rate, right? So you can FIRE in Canada and pay no tax and enjoy all the benefits of Canada. I mean, you'll still have sales tax on the things that you buy, but that's in most countries, so. Unless you live in Alberta, in which case I think there isn't a sales tax. Okay, question and answer time. Let's hit it. Next question. Happy Canada Day. Happy Canada Day to you. How's it going? It's going well. Can't complain overall. My life is blessed. We have 9 properties listed for sale right now that we're trying to sell. I'm looking at selling a bunch of properties off that I was joint venture partnershiped on, mostly because joint venture partnership requires a lot of collaboration and extra time investment. Return on time is lower on a joint venture partnership. I prefer to just, in a lot of cases, it makes more sense to give an investor a fixed return, structure it as debt, and then be in full control. There's no discussions, there's no time wasted in having to figure things out. You're in complete control and you just move on. And so there's a lot, I would say like 10 JVs take up the same amount of time as owning like 5 or 6 properties by yourself, right? So it's actually a lot less time and management and just less headspace wasted. So I've been working on that. I also am buying a bunch more properties. I actually have a bunch lined up to close. And so I'm excited to buy more properties and sell some. I'm always rebalancing my portfolio. So that's what's up in my life with real estate. I love to acquire deals. I love to transform properties. I love to enjoy the stabilization. But when a property has been fully maxed out and it doesn't fit in the portfolio for whatever reason, or it has some other inherent disadvantage, I'm always happy to sell it and buy something else. So I treat my real estate portfolio like a stock portfolio that produces great cash flow and is levered. But at any time, if I think a property is overvalued, I will sell it off. Net of tax consequences, obviously. But I rebalance my real estate portfolio in the same way I do a stock portfolio. And so yeah, that's what's happened with my world. And it just so happens that real estate is not as liquid as a stock portfolio. And so selling off, say, 20 properties takes a lot of effort to prepare them for sale and get the maximum dollar. It's one of the things I love about real estate is that you can arbitrage the hell out of it. You can get a ton of wedge deals. You can, take advantage of imperfect information and use that information to your advantage. Because people aren't equally educated. In the stock market, information is freely available, and most of the people trading have, relatively sophisticated knowledge. In real estate, that's not the case. You got moms and pops who know nothing about cap rates and know nothing about anything, and people just buying irrationally. And so if you could, pick up a deal from someone and unlock the value in it through renovation and then sell it off to someone who's looking for something turnkey, you could solve a need in the market and make a ton of money. And it's because it's hard to do, hard to execute on, the institutional investors don't go in and do it. And so it's a niche, I guess, or a market that's not exploited largely. And so there's some advantages there. It's the same in private business. Non-publicly traded private businesses, you have huge advantages to make lots of money. And so yeah, that's what I've been up to lately, and enjoying time with family more so now than ever, and focused on the things that are important in life, which is family and friends and relationships and the personal journey and personal development. So I've been furthering my education in a lot of areas that I'm interested in, and I got some personal goals that I've been working towards. I've been crushing a lot of series on Netflix and things like that, and I got back into gaming a little bit, but I want to get back into that heavier. I want to focus on those types of things more so than just building wealth for the sake of it. Now that I'm financially independent, it's less about the money and more just about enjoying the journey. And so, yeah, that's how I'm doing. Thank you for asking. Next question. Okay, yeah, we touched on education. Good question. Happy Canada Day to you. Happy Canada Day to you. Next one is, I want to invest in a small town with 500 people, but I'm not sure if the rental market is there. How do I determine if there are actually renters? Will, great question. You could go on the Craigslist, Kijiji, Facebook Marketplace, wherever the private listings for tenants looking for properties to rent and landlords posting units to rent out are, and see what kind of things are going on. But the best way, to be honest, is to talk to realtors in the local market, several of them, and get some opinions. Go on those Craigslist ads, and if you see landlords posting units for rent, call them and say, hey, how many inquiries are you getting? I would assume 500 people, unless the city's, is 500 people a city? Or like a small, like less than a town, like a hamlet maybe? I don't even know what you'd call that. But that small of a place would have some, I guess one of my main concerns would be infrastructure. Does it have adequate infrastructure? And more so, if it does, is that infrastructure aging? And will there be enough property tax roll from 500 people living in a town, which means a couple hundred houses maximum, to actually sustain that infrastructure? Because I think long-term, a lot of these small towns will just, and we've seen this happen in some small towns where they just abandon, like the water network just, something happens so that the sewer's busted and they need $10 million to repair it all. And there's not enough rent or property tax roll to actually cover that. And so the city just becomes a ghost town. That's the fear of investing in a really small town, is unless it's growing or has some really strong, fundamental that's keeping it, sustainable long-term. Like maybe it has a manufacturing plant that employs everyone there. Well, then I'd want to do a lot of research on that manufacturing plant and make sure it's going to be here for a long time. And just know that you're taking a huge gamble. You could have a negative appreciation. In fact, probably no appreciation unless the city's growing, unless demographic changes are such that there's population increase in this place. The appreciation would be negative, I would think, if not just flatline. So that's the fear of investing in a small town no one knows about with potentially unsustainable infrastructure. That's why we like to invest in bigger cities with 400,000 or 500,000 people, that sort of thing, because there's a bit of safety there from a demographic perspective, from a long-term sustainability perspective. But if you're going to invest in a small town and you're going to take those risks and you've done all your research and you're like, hey, everything checks out, it makes tons of sense, make sure you're getting at least 2% rule. 2% rule being 2% of the value of the house you need to collect in rent each month. That's the minimum. If I'm in a rural town, I'm looking for 3% rule, because there's such high risk on the lack of appreciation and the infrastructure sustainability long term that the bricks and sticks are going to depreciate in value. And if the land's also not appreciating, you've got a depreciating asset like a car. So then you got to factor in, you need an extra amount of cash flow to compensate for that. So just be careful investing in small towns. I've not done it. Maybe you're investing in a small town though that is outside of a huge town, or a huge city, right? In which case, if there's a city of 500,000 people, a 10-15 minute drive away or 20-minute drive, I think there's a trend right now towards people working from home. And I think people are moving out of the city because they don't need to be so close to work anymore. And the peripherals of cities, I think, are going to appreciate in value in a big way, more so than the core. Whereas the core used to be extremely desirable because you could walk to work. No longer is it required for us to all go to work each day. And so I think the peripheral areas of cities are a huge potential going forward in the next 10 or 15 years, especially with things like Elon Musk bringing in super fast satellite Wi-Fi, right? That sort of bridges the main, I guess, in my mind, that's probably one of the main roadblocks stopping people from moving out to the 10 minutes outside the city. And 10 minutes is not a big deal to drive for groceries once or twice, twice a month or something, right? But if you're not commuting to work anymore and you can work from home, why not get more for less? So I think the desirability of the country, or not even the country, but like the suburbs or just outside the suburbs of most cities, will be more desirable. In which case, I think that's a totally different conversation than a 500-person little hamlet town that is, 40 minutes from the nearest town. That's scary from an infrastructure sustainability perspective and long-term appreciation perspective. Hopefully that helped answer your question. That was just kind of off the cuff, my sort of initial thoughts. You'll want to do a bit more investigation and research and stuff before you make the decision. It's hard for me to know because, again, I don't know the city, I don't know any other information, and even if I did, I'd have to spend hours researching before I'd become a SME. In the industry, they call it a SME, but a subject matter expert. Well, I'm moving. Nice to hear, Philip. Welcome to Canada. I hear it's a hard place to get into, but I think if you have some money, you could probably get into Canada fairly easily. So early retirees could probably buy a business here or bring some wealth here, and they'd be able to get in much easier. So Canada would love to have your capital to invest in. Let's remember that we only incentivize in the tax code individuals investing in Canadian businesses that are paying Canadian corporate tax. That's why we get the dividends tax-free. So invest in our local infrastructure, invest in our local, in our domestic or national economy, and that's a win-win for everyone. So I think that's why the government incentivizes as they do. Happy Canada Day, D. How to? Mr. Frugal says, hi Mike, happy Canada Day. Is private business investing suited for investors in their 20s with a net worth of under 300K? If so, what resources do you recommend to learn about? It's difficult to buy businesses in general on a good day, but I think a big piece of, it doesn't matter your age, but I think a big piece of buying private businesses is, well, there's a few pieces. One, you could partner with someone who's maybe got the mature financing capability to take down a deal. And I think that anything under, any deal under $1 million probably is not a deal worth all the time and investment. It probably is an owner-operator, higher risk acquisition. I'm into buying high risk acquisitions where it's an owner-operator, only because if the owner-operator leaves, how much value is actually left there. And that's most of what you find in the under 1 million category for businesses for sale. Now, there are exceptions to that rule and a ton of them. But I guess it depends, right? If you've got to learn somewhere. You've got to build the experience somewhere to learn how to run a business. And so maybe there's an opportunity where you're partnering with an existing owner, work with them for a few years and then buy them out. That could be a great opportunity to buy into a private business at your net worth level, right? And so there could be opportunities, definitely. Is it harder to take down a bigger business with that kind of net worth? Yes, for sure it is. You would need a partner, or you might need to look at smaller businesses. So I think it's never too late, but you have to think too about diversification, right? If your net worth is $300,000 and what are you investing in? Maybe the business requires $300,000 in capital to buy it out, right? So then you'd have no diversification in real estate or stocks and other asset classes. And so it's important to remember that diversification ensures a lower level of risk of losing your money. And for me, it's always been about trying not to lose money. That's the most important piece of anything else. Like, I'm okay if I don't lose money. If I make money, bonus. And I'm always trying to make lots of money, but the worst thing you can do is lose money. So don't lose money. And I think diversification is a key cornerstone piece to that strategy. So yeah, age doesn't matter. Good question, Mr. Frugal. Hit that like button, everyone. Totally hit it. Sony, good to see you as well. Happy Canada Day. Meanwhile, I live in Cleveland and somebody set a car on fire the other day right outside my window. Ouch. I was out at 2 a.m. walking my dog last night in my subdivision, and just quiet and nice and no one out. I could literally sleep on my sidewalk where I live here, and it's fantastic. Now, there are parts of my city I wouldn't do that in, but where I live, I'm fortunate enough that it's a good neighborhood watch, and it's just quiet. It's far enough away from the city center that there's not a lot of riffraff here, and it's a really well-to-do area. So most of the people here have higher net worths. Not to say that higher net worth people are better, but statistically speaking, they don't commit as many crimes because they probably don't need to, or if they do commit crimes, it's typically behind closed doors, in which case it doesn't affect anyone on the street. So yeah, I don't want to get down a rabbit hole there, but yeah, there's some great pockets probably in the US too, where you could live and it'd be extremely safe. But yeah, Canada's a great place to live too. And we have our own problems as well. We're not perfect. Next question. Does tenant in a legal basement unit can report to you or have other leverage? What benefits for you a legal unit gives to you? Maybe can evict easily in case. So your question, I think what you're talking about is like a legal, like a basement apartment that isn't licensed or something. There's several like layers of legality, right? Like it could pass fire inspection, but not be approved by the city. In which case, like from the fire code's perspective, it's completely safe. It has means of escape, it has et cetera and so forth. So liability wise, you'd be okay in that respect. It just wouldn't pass like a local zoning code. In which case the zoning might change and the unit might become legal. In a lot of cases, it's just an application away from being legal. And so you can often solve an illegal unit by making it legal relatively easily. I know of people who have a lot of illegal units that they can make legal with an application. And so the leverage would be gone as soon as the owner just made it legal, right? And so I wouldn't worry too much, especially if you've got something that's over 6'5" ceiling height all the way through. It's got 2 means of escape from the unit, you got smoke alarms and things like that going on to read your local Ontario building code, or I guess if you're not in Ontario, whatever your local building code is and your fire code, and just find out if the suite is legal. But if it isn't legal, and this happens a lot, like people have basement apartments that they rent out and whatever, my opinion is we're in a housing crisis, or I guess a lack of rental housing for people. And it's crazy how many units may not be totally blessed, but like just someone's basement they want to rent out, and they don't want to go through all the process of making it like a legal unit, but it is safe, let's say. It's just, they haven't gone through the licensing and all that kind of crap and rezoning, and they maybe don't want to for resale purposes, but they have a perfectly good unit. I think if someone wants to enter into a contract, they see the unit, they like it, they want to enter into a contract to rent it, I believe in freedom of choice. And someone should have a freedom of choice to choose they want to live in a rental unit. And so if they want to live in an apartment for $700 a month that, maybe doesn't have full proper soundproofing, that should be their choice, I believe consumers should be able to make the choice. And if they want to live, maybe they give them a discount as such. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with doing that per se. Just make sure that, I guess tenants might use that as leverage against you, that it wouldn't be legal, but I don't know why they would even care, to be honest. Like, as long as it met fire code, safety, yeah. But as far as evicting tenants here in Ontario, no. It doesn't matter whether the unit's legal or not. It can be very difficult to evict tenants regardless, especially if a tenancy agreement has been entered into. Whether it's a bedroom or a unit, the only time where you can just evict them with the police is if you share common space. So in all of my house hacks, every single house hack I've ever done, I share the living room, the kitchen, the bathroom, the laundry facilities in some way. I'll oftentimes go down and make sure that there's a way that the two units are not completely tied off on purpose. And this has been very helpful in several cases. I had a duplex I used to live in about 4 or 5 years ago where I had to evict a tenant, and I gave them 3 weeks. I'm like, get out. In 3 weeks, you're out. And they're like, oh, but we have a lease. I'm like, no. We share laundry, we share a washroom, we share a living room. You rent these 2 rooms back here and a washroom. You do not have your own private space because we share common facilities. I had the police remove them. Gone. The landlord-tenant board only applies to individual self-contained units. So it's important if you're house hacking I think it's better to rent out rooms, because then you can just kick a tenant out whenever you want. They have no rights in your house. If you don't feel safe, immediate eviction. If they don't pay rent, you can evict them. But mostly it's a safety concern, right? Like if a tenant's threatened you or something in your own home, you just remove them, call the police, they'd be removed, right? But if they have their own independent unit, then you're each in self-contained units, that's a problem. So I prefer, in the way I structure my things, to rent out, when I house hack, to rent out rooms as opposed to renting out units. Just the better way to do it. So yeah, that's what I'd recommend in that category. You've got to protect yourself. What if you rented someone who's crazy and you have to protect your family? They have to be able to be evicted. And so structure it so that you protect yourself and your family. Canada seems great. I don't know about that bagged milk though. Yeah, bagged milk's great, honestly. No issues. We also have like milk that comes in jugs too, especially the organic milk. It all comes in jugs. So actually in my fridge right now, I don't even have bagged milk. I think we have jug milk. So yeah. Fair point about criticizing countries, inherently political. Michael Lambert says, was a big reason for your success in London area because of the appreciation of your properties, both market driven and forced via renovations. You're awesome. Thank you. Great question. So was a lot of my success through appreciation? Yes. Appreciation out of my control. Now, I bought a lot of properties and increased the value on all of those properties. I bought smart, under market value, renovated them strategically, and then created value. That's my system that I've been good at, right? Is I buy smart. I'm definitely good at that. And so regardless of market appreciation, I'd be a millionaire today. So would I be fired today without appreciation? Yes. I'm now lux fire or luxury fire to this point where I made a lot of money. Like I planned to make a good amount of money, but I made a lot of money because the market did appreciate a ton. Now, I didn't always play the appreciation the best. I sold a bunch of properties off in 2017 before the market appreciated. And, I could have maybe made more, but I was never playing for appreciation. It's always been a bonus for me. I play for the cash flow. I play for the forced appreciation through value add. I play for buying on day one and unlocking value day one because I bought smart. That's what I play for. And the appreciation is always a bonus, right? So that's just my strategy in real estate investing. And so great question. Overall, I think that you should always play for cash flow and play for the things you can control. And market appreciation or gentrification of a neighborhood, those are factors out of your control. And so that's speculating and that's gambling. And gambling's fine. Like a lot of people invest in real estate and they win by gambling, but it'd be a whole lot better if the market doesn't go the way you want it to go, that you still win. And so I like to play where I win no matter what. And if I win big, bonus. And so yes, have I won big? Yes. Like I owned real estate at the right time. And I've definitely made a lot of money because of when I owned the real estate and how big my portfolio was at the time. So yeah, definitely thankful for that. And today I'm at a point where I never need to work another day in my life if I don't want to. Now I do because I have certain goals that I want to hit and certain things I want to provide for my family long term. And one big thing is making sure my kids and my kids' kids never end up growing up how I grew up. I want to make sure that poverty is eliminated from my line going forward. And so part of that is building a trust that assumes that there's always a level of protection there for my family and keeping them out of poverty. And so there's some things going on in my life that, I have certain goals and things that are going on that, I always want to grow and to build more, right? It feels good to do that. So am I where I want to be? Not yet, but yeah, I'm doing well. So thank you for asking. Great question. Hopefully you can take that advice and build some equity in properties through forced appreciation, not through natural organic appreciation, because we can't control the latter and we can control the former. It's better to be able to be in control. And I think that's the key of investing in real estate is that we have the control. Now, sometimes when we have bad property managers and bad contractors, it can feel like we're not in control. And I know the pain of that as well. And so that's a tough one. But those are all solvable problems, right? So anyway, that's what it is. Key says, hey, Mike, can you please explain how you funded your first deal when you were 19? Thank you. Saved up. So I've been working since I was 15 at Tim Hortons. And I made 15, 16 grand a year, working 30 hours a week, something like that, roughly. I had a paper route. I cut grass for neighbors and did a flower watering business, and I did Tim Hortons. And so I was working at 16. While I was going through high school, I was saving up money and building wealth, right? And so by the time I was 19, I'd already probably earned, and then let's remember when I was 17, I went off to university and I got a $15,000 scholarship because my grades were I had 95% average finishing my high school. I worked really, really hard to get this 95 average. I was like 94.7 and just barely got it up with the final exam to 95 average to qualify for some scholarships at Western University and then the Ivy School of Business. And I applied for every bursary. I did 40 essays to apply for every single bursary, and most of them turned me down. But a couple of them heard my sob story and was like, hey, we'll send you $2,000, we'll send you $1,000. So I had a lot of, I basically, through writing a lot of essays and applying for a lot of places, I funded my education. And then I worked while I was in university as well. I worked 30 hours a week while I was in school the whole time. And so because I was working, I was saving up money. And so by 19, and my wife at the time, girlfriend, she's a year older than me actually. So when I was 19, she was 20. And so she had been working as a residence advisor at the college, not too far from where I lived. And her parents covered her tuition. And because she was a residence advisor, she had free living accommodation and she was getting paid. So she had a little bit of savings, and we combined our savings together and put 20% down at 19 on our first property. I was working as a teller at a local credit union. And that's how I got it in for someone to give me a mortgage. Now, the first 4 places I applied said no. And actually the connection through the credit union actually said no too, ironically. And I worked there. I was an employee and they said no. But I got a connection to someone who was a bit of a mortgage broker kind of specialist, and they took a chance. There was an Ivy line of credit thing going on where you could get sort of a, they could fund your $60,000 or $70,000 tuition cost of going to the Richard Ivy School of Business. And I didn't need that. I was self-funding my education through working and scholarships and bursaries, etc., mostly through working. And I actually had a little bit of help from my grandma too. It helped a little bit with my tuition in my final year. So I got a little bit of help along the way, not a ton. Like, you know, a lot of people get like their first year of tuition paid or something in their 4-year degree. So I don't know, there's lots of things that came together that kind of helped me out. And so I'd sold a car for a profit. It just kind of worked out that I had enough to get my tuition, to get my 3rd year tuition. That right when I was 19, I was going to my 3rd year. It was that summer between my 2nd year. I was just finishing my 2nd year. It was the June or July, and we bought the house, and that was in just 2011 or 2012. And yeah, the mortgage came through. Instead of giving me the line of credit for the Ivy School of Business, giving me that $80,000 line of credit, they instead agreed to a mortgage. And it was a small mortgage. I think the mortgage was like $160,000 or something. But we got it together, and we bought the house for $200,000, and it was the cheapest, crappiest house I could find that was near the university. There was 1 bus for her to go to the college and 1 bus for me to go to the university. I had a bunch of buddies come in, and actually in the first year I didn't have any buddies. I went on Kijiji and I hustled, and I rented the rooms out, and I fixed the whole place up in like a month and a half, livable enough that I could get roommates in to cover the costs. And so I lived for free from then on. I've been house hacking since I was 19. So I had no living costs at all, 0. In fact, I might even have made a little bit of money to cover my book cost. And so I just had to cover my tuition, that was it. And then got through school debt free. So yeah, buying a property worked out for me, and it was mostly through frugality and hard work that I was able to achieve that, and a bit of luck. Like, let's be honest, you know, just having perseverance, right? Like, I got no from the first bank. CIBC said no, RBC said no, TD said no. So there's a lot of no's along the way too, right? Of people who said no. And I just didn't give up, right? I kept trying, and I luckily got the offer extended and extended and extended, and I was able to make it work. So that's what I recommend for people who are just trying to get it started, is start saving first off. Like, I didn't go look for a house when I had no money, right? I saved up enough to actually, you know, I had like $29,000 or something saved up at the time to buy the house, right? Like, I actually saved up some money, and I'd worked hard, and I used that, all that previous years of income, I used that to help qualify for the mortgage, right? So if you just plan not to work while you go to school, it's gonna be hard for you to buy a house unless you have parents that are rich who will co-sign or something, right? That would probably help or you have an uncle, or you could joint venture partner with someone who you knew that had income potential, then you could get the deal done maybe. And you have to give up some equity for it or something maybe, but yeah. Next question. Hi Mike, how are you and the mentees funding 1% deals right now? Or you mean finding 1% deals right now? How are we finding them? They are difficult, but they exist. Oftentimes, actually every single deal of 2020 so far has been private. So through the network of just someone I knew, and we just sort of made a connection there, wrote up an offer. There's been nothing on MLS. Yeah, 2020 I've had 0 deals on the MLS. Not to say that there aren't deals on MLS, I just haven't found any that met my criteria on the public openrealtor.ca. But there's also been a ton of garbage being peddled privately by wholesalers, so be careful, because some of the private stuff is garbage. So that's all I gotta say, is just be careful too. Philip says, I'm thinking about becoming a real estate appraiser. What do you think about the future of appraising? I think the future of appraising is going to go into a digital model. I think that there's going to be like a 3D camera that goes through, and they're going to basically have a footprint of the house, and then someone's going to be able to take all the comp sales of all the properties that have sold in the system, match up those 3D tours, and be able to like pretty easily figure out exactly if the properties are comparable or not, and what the value of the properties are. And so the in-person appraisals, I think, are gonna die eventually. With it becoming a digital thing and more automated, I think that the value of an appraiser goes down as the software can automate a lot of what can be done from an appraisal standpoint. So I think 30 years from now, we won't have near as many appraisers as we do now, and they definitely won't be paid as well as they are now. But right now, it's a very lucrative, great job to have. And so in the short term, it's fantastic. And so I don't think there's any reason not to get into it. You learn a ton about real estate investing by becoming an appraiser. Thanks for your videos, man. You always have great information. Happy Canada Day. Thank you, Peter. Appreciate that. That was an awesome answer, Will says. Hey, happy to help. I did go on a bit of a tangent, so you're welcome. Do you sell your homes occupied? Do you have to? It depends. In many cases, I have no choice but to sell them occupied because evicting a tenant can be very, very difficult here in Ontario. In some cases, it's more valuable with the tenant in it than vacant. So it just depends. If you have great tenants at a property paying great rents, then the cap rates make sense that it's worth more rented. Next question. I gotta go faster. There's quite a bit of questions building up. Happy Canada Day, Gail. My family and I are doing well. Thank you for asking. Top 6 says, hey Mike, can you go into some tips and tricks on property management for a beginner investor? Go to your properties often. Talk to your tenants. Be firm in your set of policies. Like, don't just give on everything a tenant asks for because there'll be no cash flow at all. But be reasonable. Be firm, but be reasonable in what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, a happy tenant is the ideal for a property manager. Screen, 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 screen. Find and place good tenants. That means, like, you don't want the lower class tenants. You can easily pick them out, right? The tenants that have, issues with drug abuse, and it just, the more drama you think a tenant's going to have, the harder your job is going to be as a property manager. And so you want to find the least dramatic tenants you can find, the ones that are going to just pay their rent and be good. That's what a property manager is looking for in an ideal world, right? And the job of property manager gets really hard with the rough properties, right? That attract the rougher tenants. And those rougher tenants, they take 10 times as much time as a good tenant. Like, my 10 best tenants take less time than my 1 bad tenant. He'd take up more time than, like, my entire portfolio, just like daily issues, right? And they create problems. They live in drama, right? Sorry, someone tried to call me. Killed my live stream. So what was I saying here? I lost my train of thought, but finding good properties to manage would be the ideal for a property manager just getting started, and tenant screening being the ultimate of importance. Next question. I know my market inside and out, Jamie says, and I plan on buying several more houses. Do you recommend getting my realtor license? What are the costs associated with being a realtor, and would you say it is worth it? It depends. I've covered this one probably 10 times now. It sucks to answer the same questions 10 times in a row, but here we go. So basically, I'll just say this. If you're gonna do less than 10 deals a year, so 10, including buying and selling, 10 transactions a year, if you're gonna do less than 10 a year, don't have your license. Pretty much that's how the numbers work out. If you're gonna do more than 10 transactions a year, get your license. So that's the nuts and bolts of it when you work at the cost and the benefit and the time investment to get it and the cost to keep your license going. Each year there's insurance costs, there's RICO fees, and there's like all the agencies you got to pay money to, your local board, you got to pay a couple thousand to. Anyway, there's lots of costs to keep it going. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. Hey Mike, what is the minimum down payment you think I can do on a $200,000 property with creative financing strategies? Thanks. You could do 5% down, and that would be like a 10 grand or something plus closing costs. If you did 20% down, then that would be like 40 grand plus closing costs. You could get creative and just borrow all the money and have no money in the deal at all, but that would require a bit of creativity. Vicken says, hey, how you doing? Says, Mike, what's the name of your 16-year-old friend who is investing in real estate? I want to get my 11-year-old guy introduced through real estate to this generation of people. Oh, you're talking about, oh, jeez. I'm drawing a blank. Tyson? What's it, Tyson? He's the kid who bought properties. His parents bought them in trust and then gave them to him, but he kind of saved the down payment for it. So the way it basically works, you can't own real estate before you're 18 years old. Your parents, like, you could buy real estate for your child and you could say in trust for the child when they turn of age or something to that effect, but the mortgage still would have to be transferred over and qualify in the child's name, in which case you would just be qualifying for the mortgage and like you would still be liable on the mortgage with them 1% on title. So it's impossible for someone, like, it's actually a myth that they bought the real estate by themselves. But again, like, you could get your kids saving money and then using their own money to buy the property, and you could get the financing for them, like get the mortgage for them and help them procure the deal and then drive them there to help them with the tenants and the renovations and all of that kind of stuff. Totally, that's something you can do. Look him up. I'm trying to remember his full name. I want to say it's Tyson. I have him on Facebook. I've met him a couple of times. He's a good kid. heard another 17-year-old that did it in the US too, but they didn't actually buy the real estate. And so that's one thing, one caveat for your 11-year-old. They can't actually own real estate, but you could own real estate for them and they could learn to manage it with you. So it's sort of like a joint venture partnership, really, which is super cool and something you could do. Next question, Mike, thanks for the detailed answer to the legal unit question, Mike. Awesome. Shared laundry would be enough to have a shared space to be able to evict an unsafe issue? No, shared laundry would not be enough unless the laundry was like directly in their unit. You had to go through their living room to get to it. Are we still going here? Did I disconnect? Just got like 3 calls from a realtor friend of mine. Must have a deal or something going on. I had to say goodnight to my daughter. My youngest one goes to bed right about now. I'm a Canadian working in the US for the last 20 years. I'm thinking to move back. I wonder how the taxation would work. You'd have to talk to an accountant about that, but I would assume there'd be some tax complications there for sure. Calgary real estate is getting cheaper now. I'm thinking to move back. I wonder if I should buy a house there and rent it out. Yeah, I mean, you have to run the numbers and see if it makes sense, but it could make sense, especially with oil being kind of up and down all the time lately. There's been a lot of volatility. Commercial appraising, I think, yeah, it probably has a longer life than residential appraising does, for sure. But some digitization, I agree. Yeah, good point. Good point about the harder for it to be digitized. Silver Talk says, hi Mike, have you noticed the real estate markets haven't dropped in price yet? Are you seeing a drop anytime soon? Thanks. Well, there's a lot of money going into the economy right now, so markets aren't dropping yet, and we shouldn't see any drop. It's like also bankruptcy rates in general are the lowest they've been in history. Foreclosure rates are some of the lowest they've been in history. Everyone is getting basically like forbearance or the ability to delay, and so there's a lot less impounding and taking of houses right now than there should be. People should be going bankrupt, but they're not. COVID is preventing the ones who would have went bankrupt anyway without COVID from going bankrupt, or they're getting delays, right? And credit cards are giving delays, and everyone's giving delays because of what's going on. And I think when all these delays end and the people have to face reality, there'll be the biggest amount of bankruptcies and foreclosures and just a ton of like reality hitting people in the face, right? And when the stimulus stops at some point, that's when the market's going to decline. Right now, we're propped up on stimulus money, and so things are good. If you wanted to sell property, now would be the time to do it, probably. If you're going to buy, be careful what you're buying. But I could use that as a springboard for getting into investing commercial appraising. Yeah, you could. It's true. Fair point. Canada has good public facilities. I think you got a lot of value for your taxes. Yeah, you do get a lot of value for your taxes. It's true. Thanks for the answer, Mike. Very helpful. No problem. What insurance provider do you use? So I use, you just use someone who's great for you, who makes sense. Like I honestly would just shop around with like 4 different insurance companies and find the best person who give you the best price for the best terms. If you have a lot of rental properties, an umbrella policy might make sense. I'm not an insurance specialist, so I can't even comment, but I personally like to have a little bit higher deductible. That's just my personal opinion. I'd rather be a little bit more on the self-insurance side unless a big catastrophe happens at a property. So yeah, like if I had $5,000 issue at a property, I wouldn't even call the insurance company. I'd be worried with the rates going up. And so I just don't. For anything under $10,000, I just don't even go to the insurance company, period. And so that's kind of how I approach insurance. It's there for those worst case scenarios. What's your answer on shared laundry completely lost? So no, the answer is no, it is not. That would not be enough. Living space shared, or like a washroom shared, or something like to that effect. Like a kitchen shared or something. Thoughts on REITs versus real estate? REITs have poor leverage, and overall they have a lot of management fee, which brings, and because they're doing so much volume, they can't arbitrage near as well. And so typically with a REIT, you'll get like an 8 to 10% return, maybe 12% in a hotter market, maybe a little bit more. With real estate investing, you can be in full control and you can find really good deals under market value. You can squeeze out the cash flow. You have to put in a lot of time in real estate. You buy a REIT, you don't have to put any time in. So your time has value, but you can invest your time, and you can often get with proper leverage 5 to 1 that you can't get in a REIT, but you can get again with with private real estate. Then you get a much better return. Do you have any tools or calculators you use to calculate if a real estate investment makes sense? Yes, I have a couple of spreadsheets I use in Google Sheets and in Excel that I built. I used to offer them for free on my website, but then my website expired and I didn't bother renewing it, and now I don't even think the name's available. So I'd have to boot my website back up. It's not a priority for me right now. Maybe someday I will, and those tools will be made free and available again. They exist, I just haven't got around to bringing them there. And there's no incentive for me to do so, and so I'll get to it when I get to it. But yes, tools do exist, and you can make your own, and there's tons of online free ones you could use too, I'm sure. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hey, no problem, happy to answer it. Aaron's last question says, wow, I just discovered your channel literally a few hours ago. You're amazing, Mike, and I can't believe you're doing this live in Canada. You're such an inspiration. Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate the positive feedback and comment. And if you're watching the replay of this and you just like my channel, you enjoyed the content tonight, or you like Canada, or you hate Canada, smash a button. Hopefully it's a like button. You want to smash the unlike button too, I don't care. Engagement is engagement. It lets YouTube know that you watch my video. It lets them know to send it out to my greater subscriber base, because let's remember, only the people who have that special notification bell clicked and are looking for an alert on these live videos even get something to pop up on their feed. And then if I do pop up on their feed, I'm competing with everyone else, like all the other greats on YouTube that are a lot better than me because they put in more time, they do a better job, and they're probably just naturals on YouTube compared to how good I am and how little time I invest. But that said, I try to invest every single Wednesday in the time that I give you guys, which is typically from 7 to 8 p.m., sometimes a little bit longer for the live show. And tonight we're gonna cut it a little bit short because I'm gonna go enjoy my Canada Day festivities. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and please smash that like button, smash the down like button if you want to, I don't care. Just engage, leave a comment and say, hey Mike, just watch the replay. Thanks for giving us your time tonight for free. Anyway, everyone, have a good night, and I will see you all next week, next Wednesday. Have a good week. What do I say at the end of every single YouTube video that I do for the last 2 years? It's been my slogan. You guys know it. The secret to unlocking a wealthier you is 3 levers you can play with, and that's it. Spend less, earn more, and maximize returns on the difference. Good night, everyone. Happy Canada Day.